exhibition where I feel like no one should be here, but you all braved it. Good job. So my tour will be the beginning of all of my trauma, up till today. And if anyone has any questions, start with sharing your own trauma. But I'll maybe keep it more casual than that. The whole show is titled 50 Bad Artworks because I don't know if anyone else has ever had intentional artist's block, but I spent like about 5.5 years in LA. I got my first ever 9-to-5 job, and I don't know how people like balance those things.
Is that why you're wearing a tie?
No, I wanted to feel fancy.
Oh, okay.
But I realized that I wanted to focus on like my inner world, and then I didn't really know how people check that out anyways, so it was going to be a long process. And then I forgot that making art is a lot of fun, so even though I have like a background in art education, I think I like came back into art through a non-art way. Like instead of me being an art teacher, I did encourage myself. Instead I figured out how to like think about it in a way of like tricking myself. So it was more about like, if I give myself an assignment to make 50 bad artworks, I'll get back into artwork, as opposed to like thinking about how maybe I need better self-esteem and then I'd make better artwork. So I said, I'm gonna cut all that out, not gonna worry about any of that, and I'll just make as much stuff as I can. And I was supposed to finish this in December. So I never finished it, and thankfully Casa Lu came along, and that's the reason I decided to finish making the 50 bad artworks. So I think I maybe had 30 finished before I came here, and then I half-assed everything else. So what I get to show you is me making up things as if it's an artwork. Like this is technically not an artwork that's part of the show, but I decided it's going to be because it's really cool looking. But I built these mechanisms where literally like musicians are hooked up with not just wires, like a fishing line. And as they move, it actually squirts ink. If you can imagine this being like a tank of water that's only like feet high. But as they move their limbs, like it squirts ink into it, and then they actually have a score that I've commissioned from different composers. And then I actually take a marble print of the score. And like what a marble print looks like, I actually have a version of it. So imagine this, but with music notation on it.
Cool.
And for every time that they do a musical performance, it makes one print. So I was also trying to come up with a way to like help fund musicians, because I was convinced there's not as many avenue streams for that as there are for like visual artists. So it was like a really fun way for me to like help my very broke musician friends. Cool. But this is the part where I am stuck, so if anyone has any ideas, I haven't figured it out. I have a new commissioned music piece that I want to do, but it's commissioning a guitar player and a drummer. And the one thing I couldn't figure out was how to make, this is going to sound really weird, but I wanted to make it so the drummer sits down and he's got a kick that like would change like and shake the tank. And if they play the cymbal, this would also like shake and have little like pins. Because when you put pins in like marbled water, it makes like that combed look, kind of like the top of a latte. Yeah. And the thing I couldn't figure out was how do you make it so that when he sits, you know how like a record needle goes up, across, and down? That's what I wanted this to do. And my brain shorted for like 3 weeks. I couldn't figure it out. So this has been in this state for only a week, but I've literally just been thinking about this piece, and I'm never going to finish it before I leave because I can't think of the mechanism that works. Because it's like someone sits, something goes up, then across, then turns, then goes down, and then moves. But it was at least really fun building this, even though technically it doesn't work the way I want it to yet. But yeah, I like things that look like Rube Goldberg machines. I found out that in the UK they'd never heard of him because they have Keith Robinson, who's like the Rube Goldberg of the UK, and people in the US have never heard of him. So it's kind of funny.
What's your one called?
Rube Goldberg.
Rube Goldberg.
So you haven't heard of him?
No.
See? And then this is like one of the things that actually when a guitar player, or no, this was for a cello player and a viola player. So the way that it worked originally, like, this is totally just me inventing this here because I thought it was cool. You can still buy feather dusters here. But the whole thing is like, as they move their arm, it would actually like have a little hammer that hit little balloons that had pipettes, and that squirted ink. And then they had a little selector arm, so like something would move left and right, so when the other arm moved, it would like select which ink it was gonna hit. So it looked really cool and it worked. But every time I do this piece with a different type of musical instrument, I have to change the entire apparatus. So I made one for like a trumpet player that goes around his head, which also doesn't technically work, but it looks really cool. So I'm really into things that actually
Don't work.
well, I love the photos of things as if it works. So maybe it's like I like the imagination that someone assumes that it works, and to me I'm like, good.
Wait,
I
so
definitely
can you
agree.
do it? Can I do
Oh yeah, if anyone wants to, this is just totally a bunch of kinetic work, because I just think kinetic work is more fun than other types of art. I like that it walks a little too. It's like a little dancing thing. And then, oh yeah, so if anyone wants to pay for this, feel free. Because all my stuff that I think, when I think about art and accessibility, I usually try to think about how if I make something really fun, it'll be a lot less intimidating than someone's trying to be like, do you know who made this piece? It's really important that you know why they made it. And I don't care about any of it. So as an art educator, my whole thing was to get kids to look at art for a very long time. And you ask them like, what do you see? What do you think is happening? And then you just keep asking them like, why did you say that? And then the kids basically are learning that they should use reasoning skills at all times. But what's really funny is they figured out when they do this with little kids with contemporary art or other types of art, they're like a much more educated gallery goer than anyone who thinks they are. So it's kind of this exciting thing that like all the elitism that people think is necessary in museums, like who's the artist, what's the history? If anyone wants to keep the museum open, they just need to figure out how to make it so that all the people feel like it's accessible.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I gave to just Delphine, but if other people want to check this out, I've been really working on accessibility as another art piece. Cool. And this is an entire guide I made about ADHD, which is something that I've got. But I realized that all of the books on ADHD are like an inch thick. All the videos are for parents with ADHD, or parents with kids with ADHD, and they're 2 hours long. So I made a zine that's basically like
Super cool.
stealing a ton of information from lots of really clear sources, because brevity is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
But like, the whole idea is you can flip through the entire book, and the front is like, if no one believes you, it's like very straightforward.
Totally.
And by the time you get to the back, it's very existential. So it even asks like, is ADHD real? If you look into all the other cultural factors,
Totally.
like what about its relationship to capitalism? What about its relationship to like something even more general about anxiety or depression? Like, does it need a specific name?
Yep.
But that's been the adventure that I was actually going to do at Casa Lu, and then the pandemic happened, so I finished it before I came. And that's why I did finish 50 Bad Artworks, because I had the time.
Would you still be looking for local
Yeah.
collaboration? Okay, great.
And like the nicest thing that I found recently was when I went to get the risograph prints there. So the place I went to, Inverted Crater, or Created
Crater.
Cooperative,
Mm-hmm.
they have a history of 12 years of Mexico City's zines, and a bunch of them are on disability. And then they know a bunch of artists as well, like a deaf woman who makes, I think she's making choreography with sign language. So there's like disabled artists making work for other disabled artists, which I feel like is what the realm of this is. It's like a for us, by us kind of concept.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about it because it's also my proof of concept that I can show other people, and then they know what I'm talking about. And before then, they were just like, does it really exist? And then it was really annoying conversations, because sometimes I feel like I want something as a quick reference. And I actually used that right away because what ended up being finalized in that was when I went to help a friend who was having a panic attack, and I realized I wanted the resources I had, but I like stripped out a lot of things and just put it whatever I was like helping her with at the time. So it's like a very practical guide that I've actually used. And I just need to remember to like keep it on me because it's that useful for me.
This is fantastic.
Super cool.
Yeah, thanks. So I feel like it'd be more interesting for me if people just invent and make up whatever they think artworks are about when we go back downstairs.
Okay.
And then I'll just listen because it's so much more interesting for me to find out what people think it is and looks like.
Great.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
These are fantastic. It's
Yeah,
really
super
nice.
Thank
Really
you.
good.
Thanks. Yeah, I love the fact that my failures look beautiful. So.
Yeah. And they definitely look like they work, you know?
It was a pulley. It
Yeah,
sure
exactly. I
is.
was like fascinated with the pull and like, something's happening.
I mean, I didn't even get to see it bounce until I got to the residency because I built this whole thing before, but it was like on stilts. But to me, there's like, now I kind of want to make a George Rickey sculpture that's all symbols, but I'm pretty sure another artist has done it. But has anyone been able to play it? That's the one thing that I'm like, I feel like being able to touch art is really important.
Absolutely.
So cool.
Yeah. So yeah, feel free to touch things. The very first table you'll see is just so that I want to see who had the guts to just start moving things around because they were as impulsive as I am.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Shall we go downstairs?
Sure, I'll follow your all lead.
Okay, cool, cool.
Do you have copies? Is there like one that I can
I can give you a
purchase?
digital
or-
version.
Oh,
Or
that'd be
maybe
great.
you could purchase this for. Does
Yeah,
it work out what I was doing?
we are teachers and I work with lots of kids with ADHD, so I'd
That'd be
love to.
great.
I think we're all art educators. So
Okay.
that would be super. No, but
Let's start with
if
these.
you want to keep them, we can do the digital, whatever is easier.
Oh, either way. Okay.
Look at digital.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
sure.
normally I rarely meet people who actually will use this with their students. Like
Like we would
that's really
definitely,
helpful for me to actually get it out to people.
for
This
sure.
looks perfect.
It's super cool. The other format and everything.
I guess I'll get your emails and then.
Yeah, we
and
are
send
in
it to you.